My name is Jack Saylor. I'm an artist on the coast of North Carolina. I'm a North Carolina native, and I have a studio and home here at Atlantic Beach. Just briefly, a little bit of my background. I grew up in Winston-Salem. When I was 15, my father was transferred to Eastern North Carolina, to Wilson, and I fell in love with Eastern North Carolina. I ended up going to Atlantic Christian College, now Barton College, and studied painting under Chris Wilson. I was very fortunate that right after graduation, um, I met Alex Surratt at Surrey Limited. Actually, I knew Alex a few years prior to graduation, but um, I had plans to continue my painting studies in the south of France. And Alex asked if I would be interested in doing a little internship with Surrey the summer before I left for France. And it turned out we ended up with a really good relationship. And I loved Surrey. I really liked Alex. And so a year after graduating from college, Surrey sent me to Barcelona, Spain, and to Florence, Italy, and where I continued to study painting, and I continued to paint and work with Surrey. And for the next 10 years, I was traveling back and forth between the United States and Europe. I was working in the studios and workshops of some of the finest craftspeople in Europe, learning, centuries old crafts. After about 10 years of that, I was inspired enough and confident enough, I think, in my painting to launch a full-time career as an artist. And so I moved down to the beach. It's been 25 years ago. And I've been here ever since. The coast has always been a source of inspiration for me. It's been my fountain of inspiration, I guess you could say. I fell in love with North Carolina coast again. I remember as a child, family vacations would bring us down here, and the experiences never left me. So for years, I painted the North Carolina coast because it was what was familiar. But I found that after years of doing that, I began to yearn for the experiences I had on the Mediterranean coast. That was a period in my life when I was working with Surrey that my artistic aspirations were about as high as they'd ever been. I had developed the skills, I think, to paint some really fine paintings and to explore some of the themes that I was exposed to while I was living in Europe. You can't really see it, but the painting behind me is an example of sort of a going back to those Mediterranean inspirations and early aspirations of when I was reaching really high as an artist. Right now, we're all at a kind of a very strange place, I think, with this pandemic that's going on. I am extremely fortunate that I get to live here at the beach and do what I do. Lately, I've been going out on the beach several times a week to paint, just as a way to get out of the studio and to get out onto the beach, which right now, quite frankly, is fairly shut down to the public. It's a source of escape, if you will, but it's also a way to connect with nature in a way that is necessary for an artist, I think. We confine ourselves to the studio, and we need to get out in plain air. Not necessarily to create great paintings, but I think to absorb the truth and the honesty of color, of the elements, the environment. And it's been ironic, for me at least, that I think I've done some really good art by being out in nature and just letting the work happen naturally. So I think what I'll do now is pack my stuff up and head out to the beach, and we'll just briefly document one of these little plein air paintings.